welcome to another edition of the Camel Chat. And I'll tell you, like all of the ones we've done so far, I am privileged today. I met this lady, I think 2 years ago, through the Doodle community. And all I can say was, when I first spoke to her on Zoom, OMG. You know how much I love powerful women. And this lady, I'm telling you, you'll hear in the next hour, Power Plus, she should be an Avenger wearing a cape. Why? When you read her CV, like, I get embarrassed, right? Because this lady, Marci Bryant, right, has done so much. I don't even know how old she is. She's still young and beautiful. So how she's achieved all this stuff, because what do you see on her CV? You see things like Ford, you things like AT&T, and you see all this stuff. She's a trainer, she's a manager, she's a marketer, she's an advisor, a businesswoman. My God, ladies and gentlemen, she's written a book. So she's worth our time, our ears to listen to for an hour. Wonder Woman, as I said, should be wearing a cape. And it's my pleasure to spend 1 hour with the awesome Marci Bryant of Marci Bryant. Look, she's even got an MBA, folks, right? Marci Bryant, MBA of Sync Digital Agency. So, Marci, welcome.
Oh my gosh, I think that's the most exciting introduction I've ever had. An Avenger, I will take it. Thank you.
Marci, this chat, the way I've designed it is, it goes pretty simple. I like to know your story, your opinion, all right, good things, bad things. And I started off with something really simple. And that is, you know, when you go to a dinner party and you're sitting down and it's a bunch of strangers, right? And they always ask that question. So tell me about yourself. What I want to know is what I call the early years. So it's your personal story from birth, right? Up to when we get to the working stage. The working stage we'll focus on later on. But what's Marci's story? Where you're from, parents, sort of stuff. Give me a 5-minute personal pitch.
Okay. Well, I am Marci Bryant, MBA. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and I got my start in the industry. And I know it said like the early years, but I actually started my career in about 3rd grade.
Wow.
My mom, yeah, I know, it's crazy. My mom worked at WDIV, which was a Detroit franchise of NBC. And back in the 80s, which is when I was born, I'm aging myself a little bit, but back in the 80s, WDIV was a place where it was very family oriented. So you didn't necessarily have to send your child to latchkey. So I spent a lot of days after school at a TV station, learning from engineers and journalists and producers and account executives, just all the different aspects of media at a very young age. And my mother saw my interest in commercials, radio and TV commercials. I would actually get upset whenever she tried to turn them off. You know how some people would try to go TV or channel searching during the time that the commercials are on, but the commercials were just as important to me as the show. And she didn't understand it. And at first I didn't either, but she allowed me to get into a commercial for a TV, for a furniture company called Robinson Furniture in 3rd grade.
Wow.
And my mother was the type of mother where if we've got an opportunity to shine, we have to be in our Sunday best no matter what. So she put me in my Sunday best and talked me into being all spiffy for this TV commercial. And turns out it was on a playground. So she had me in my Easter dress on a playground and everybody else was dressed for the playground. So this is on YouTube, right? And I am in a shiny pink dress on a playground saying my lines. So that's where I got my start. It turned out well. If you're going to stand out like that, you might as well show, right? So I did a great job and I got invited back to a Christmas special that was hosted by the TV station. And I got to be in a mansion with NBA player Isaiah Thomas of the Detroit Pistons and talk about my favorite Christmas memories. And that all happened within about a year span, and I was hooked. My mother was an accountant there. My dad was really into social studies and STEM. he was a social worker,
Hmm.
and he always got me into science and stuff in like Detroit area pre-college engineering program and science fair. So my career is a combination of all of those things. My mother's love for math as an accountant, her experience at the TV station, my dad's experience. I think the way that I communicate with people, like my discipline from media is from my mom, but the social work side, the way that I have understanding and empathy for people comes from my dad, and my love for science and engineering comes from him. And now I'm a B2B marketer who focuses on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics companies to help them out with marketing, sales, and service. So that's where I started, and that's how I ended up here.
That's the 5-minute bit. So mum sounded pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at your core culture now, right,
Mm-hmm.
business-wise, life-wise, where's the power come from the mum side or the dad side?
From both. I am a
Right.
hybrid of both of their passions.
So you got a 50-50.
Yes, and neither one of my parents were entrepreneurs. They didn't have a desire to be an entrepreneur. You know what?
Wow.
I'm not going to say that. My mother actually did have a desire to be a caterer. She really enjoyed cooking. She
Yeah.
ended up stopping school so that she could raise her family and focus on a job. So she went to accountants, and that's how she got her start in the industry as an accountant.
Yep.
But myself and my brother were her biggest accomplishments. And when she passed, I didn't have any children. So I thought about what will my legacy be? And I decided it was going to be what I shared with people about what I knew and my love for marketing, because I wasn't a parent at the time. So my business was my first baby. And that was what inspired me to get started thinking about what my legacy on this earth will be.
Yeah, it's funny. The more I do these, and I ask that first 5 minutes life question, I found that our parents can be a driver or a stopper.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes,
I know my own mum. My mum was a great performer, right? She was back in the 40s and 50s. She made records, and then she got married at 21, and it all stopped, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, you got married, you got pregnant, and you stayed home and you cooked and you wore the pinafore and you did all that. And a lot of my stuff was mum driving me not to be married, barefoot, and pregnant at 21, but I told her, mum, I'm a bloke. That doesn't happen. But my dad was from a really poor family, but he was so smart. But those days, it was very hard to get an opportunity. And my dad pushed me because he had the talent, but never got the opportunity, So I'm a 50-50. And I think a lot of the people, the successful people I talk to are 50-50s.
Yeah,
Really
I'm a 50-50 for sure.
You're a 50-50. Now, let's go to the business side of it. How'd that start? Where did you start? Right? And then lead up to where you are now.
Okay. So let's see. I had my first freelance contract in maybe 2004, 2005. And I actually had about 2 jobs. I got hired for 2 freelance contracts within about 2 weeks of each other. Wow. So the very first one was a marketing director for a clothing company, and I made $250 per month.
That's huge money.
I mean, it was hard not to put it all in one place. And then the other job that I had was getting leads, getting names and phone numbers in exchange for giving people gift certificates for local businesses for a fitness company. And that was 10 cents per lead. That is where I got my start in business.
Was that you had to get on the phone? Did you have to get on the phone and find them?
No, I actually had to be in person. So there's a mall in my area. It's called Northland Mall. And in the food court, they had this tabletop game that was very much like Wheel of Fortune. You had to spin. And on this game, it had like logos for a variety of companies. And whichever company you landed on, once you gave your name and phone number, you might get like free tickets to the zoo, or a free meal,
Yeah.
or, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
And so this was the original lead generation, getting your name and email in exchange for something. So imagine people giving their name and phone number, not in a form, but just on a sign up piece of paper in public where everybody else can see it, and only getting paid $10, 10 cents a person for that. But I was successful. I trained other people. I had a team of 5 that I trained remotely, because I also had 2 other part-time jobs in addition to that. And I was number 1 within the region, which included the entire state of Michigan and Indiana. So I was very successful.
Awesome. I remember my first sales job. The sales manager, John Radakis was his name, great guy. And he threw the phone book at me, shut it down on the desk and said, there's 250,000 people in there in this area, and some of them want to buy a motor car. Start calling. That was it.
I remember that.
You know, so 10 cents. So how many people would you get in a day?
Usually at least 80. At least 80 in the shift. That was the bare minimum. Sometimes I could get like 150, 170 on a good day. And it also depended on like what day of the week it was, what time of day it was, if it was a holiday or something where you can expect people to be at the mall, like the beginning of the school year or something like that. Yeah, things
You have
like
a lot
that.
of people tell you get lost, none of your business.
No, because they wanted the free stuff.
There you go. So it was one of those it was an
irresistible offer.
Yeah,
they had the irresistible offer way back then.
Okay, so move a little bit forward. Don't get to Marci Bryant MBA yet, right? But if you move,
all right,
you went to, $200 a week. People can't understand that, right? And so, 10 cents a person, right? It doesn't compute
right,
in their head,
right. Now,
so what was the next step?
So the reason I was okay with accepting that is because nobody else would give me an opportunity to be a marketer. I had a Bachelor of Arts in Advertising and an MBA in marketing, but nobody would let me do that work. So all I got stuck with doing was sales. Well, it turns out that I had a fear, and this is the craziest thing, I had a fear of being an artist and a designer. And I let that fear stay with me for a very long time. And it caused me to end up in school 3 times. I had the ability to learn graphic design in undergraduate, but I didn't because I thought I wasn't any good with it. So instead of leaning into what I wasn't good in and getting the discipline, I shied away from it and avoided it at all costs, not knowing that it was actually the key to my success.
Yeah.
So I was sick from a job that I really did not like. It stressed me out to the point of like almost death. And I started applying for jobs. They wouldn't help me get another job in the company. And I got an interview for AARP in DC for $80,000. And at the time I was on disability making $7.20 an hour, stressed nearly to death. And they stopped the interview right in the middle of it when they found out that I didn't have Adobe Creative Suite experience. I said I had graphic design experience, but literally all I had been doing was making flyers in PowerPoint. I thought that's what it meant to have graphic design.
I can't believe this. You're doing this interview, you're scared of graphic design in a way. You haven't got Adobe apart from, okay, you can do PowerPoint, you can do all that sort of stuff. And I just said, no. And
so they stopped me right in the middle of the interview. They decided that I couldn't move forward because this job was a minimum required. This skill was a minimum requirement. And I'd heard, apply for jobs where you don't necessarily have all the skills, but if you have some of them, maybe they'll call you back. So I figured this was one of those things. Well, somewhat, but the skill that I was missing, they just could not afford to not have. So they hung up on me. And I was sitting there with my face on the floor because I was making $7.20 an hour and I was stressed to the max at a job that I hated. And I just missed my first opportunity at success. No, but I didn't even know marketers could make $80,000. I was like, what? That was more than double than my mother had made. Like the highest amount that my mother had made in her career as an accountant. I didn't even know that was possible. So when I found out what I had just messed up on and missed out on by not having that skill, I was enrolled in a digital design program within 30 days, and I
Yeah.
graduated with a 3.98. I decided people would tell me no in the future, but never for that reason again.
Go
And
girl.
I was afraid of it because in 5th grade, I tried to draw an oil canvas painting of the Detroit skyline and the Ambassador Bridge at sunset. And because I couldn't get the painting to be the way that I wanted, I told myself that I was not an artist. And I let that disappointment and fear carry me from 5th grade until my mid to late 20s,
That's
until
crazy.
I realized that that was holding me back. It was
Yeah.
it was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So letting
You're not
go of that
alone.
fear.
There's a lot of people out there that there's that one thing holds them back, and you've got to be proud of yourself. You 30 days, you decided let's get into that and never let it happen again.
You know what? It probably would have been sooner, but it took me a couple of weeks to figure out which program I was getting into. But
Yeah.
yes, it was immediately I knew I have to conquer this and I have to be great at it. I have to do better at this than anything else I've ever done because I have to slay it. It's a fear. I've let it defeat me. And now I've got to get this thing back so I can land on top. And that's what I did.
So how did you end up with like all the goodies on the resume, which is the Ford, the AT&T, and the all this sort of stuff?
Okay.
What happened?
So I ended up at T-Mobile was my first official sales job. My mom knew somebody who knew somebody that had a job open at T-Mobile, and the job was like 2.5 hours to get there on a bus. And I was in my MBA studying on the bus for 2.5 hours one way every day to get to work. So that's how my career started. The way that I ended up getting this job was there was this company called myjobhunter.com, and I put my resume on there. And this was like software as a service back in the day, like maybe about 2011. And it allowed me to upload my resume and it would customize a cover letter for me and automatically apply for jobs that I qualified for in certain geographic areas.
Wow.
Where there was this company there's a company in Indiana. I didn't even know that I had applied, but this software applied for me, and they had been looking for people in Indiana and Illinois, and they couldn't find anybody. But I positioned my resume to be STEM because of my experience in high school and in middle school, and along with my AT&T and T-Mobile, that's all STEM telecommunications. And so they called me and they relocated me from Michigan to Indiana to be there. And that was the start of my career. But it was also, it was a small company, but they were a diesel company. And so that was my automotive experience. And so that was how I was able to have an in at Ford Motor Company at a later date.
Awesome. So you go through all this, say you've got the sales side, then you're doing the MBA, you've got these companies that you work for, and then all of a sudden one day you decide, I'm going to start a business for me.
Yes. So while I had this dream job that I've been trying all my life to get to, my mother was sick before I left town. She had cancer and she overcame it and went into remission for a few years. And so I felt confident in taking this job because she seemed like everything was fine. Well, I get to this new place where I don't know anybody. I'm just here for opportunity. And my mother gets sick again. And it just so happened that the owner's first wife passed of cancer and his second wife was a cancer survivor. And so they knew some things about my journey ahead that I really hadn't accepted yet. So he let me go with the severance and sent me home to care for my mother. I cared for her for 8 months. I pretty much lost everything. I lost my job, my apartment, her apartment. My car got repossessed on the same day that I enroll her into hospice. It was just really tough for me. I lost everything. And this was the job that I had been trying to get to my whole life. And so this was like a goal that I had since elementary school. And so to finally get to that thing and to have to let it go over something like just life stuff that we can't control, I was crushed and I didn't really know what to do. And I was also broke because my unemployment had run out after so much time and I was still grieving. And I was sitting there with this grief. I had this talent. I was thinking about legacy and what I would leave with the world when my time was up. And those are the things that made me start my own business, having a way to make money for myself until I was ready to go back into the workforce. And also something that I could have as my own, that I could say was, this is something, a talent that I got from my mother, or that was inspired by her. And I'm carrying her with me in this journey as a way to make her proud and to continue her legacy of sharing something. And it's my desire to share my love of marketing and my business that I'm building with my daughter to continue legacy.
Oh. How did you get your first client?
My first client, I remember my first client. Somebody sent them to me. So they saw that, so people saw that I was doing my own flyers. So in the process of me creating my own business, I had to make my own flyers, my own business cards, banners, website, everything. So I actually learned a lot doing all those things for myself for the first time. And as a result, I decided that those things would be the services that I offered. So when my first event, which was the opening of my business, I went to like a business expo at the Detroit Library, and people started coming up to me, and somebody met me. And later on, they didn't need my services, but they recommended that someone else call me. And the first person wanted, for my marketing service, a website. I had flyers before that, but I don't really count those too much because I only had maybe 4. It took me like 12 hours to do those flyers, and I got paid about $45. It was hell.
But
It was
it was all great.
terrible.
It was marketing, as in flyers, business cards. So it was graphic design marketing.
Yes, the thing that I didn't like is the thing that I leaned on to start my business. Yes.
Isn't that funny? That's crazy. The thing you didn't like is the thing. And what I love, the other part of the story of getting it going was you were at the bottom. Okay. It was
On the way.
no job, everybody's sick, no money, lost both houses, and away you go. Funny story. That's how I started TheCamel. And
wow.
Similar thing, I just lost basically everything. I was on the phone to one of my dearest friends, and she said, "What do you think?" And I said, "You know what, H, I think this is the straw that broke the camel's back."
Oh, wow.
She said, "What a great name for a business." And I thought, she's right. And I spent the $75 and I registered the business name, and I went out there, and my only wares I had was, give me anything and I'll sell it. And I just started camel and straw, don't let business break your back sort of idea. Go out there and just help people on how to sell their products and services. And it ended up years later, I'm in the Philippines building websites and doing marketing for people all over the world. Another story. But I feel a lot when you talk about that. There's so many people out there don't understand the best time to lift up is when you're at your biggest letdown.
Yeah. You can only go up from there.
You can,
but there's always room for gratefulness, though, because no matter what situation we're in, there's always somebody who wishes life could be just as good as ours. So I always had room for gratefulness, and having that perspective also gave me hope about what was possible.
Amen. And you started that. Obviously, you didn't have a lot of capital.
No, I did not. I did not have a lot of capital.
That didn't hold Marci back.
Right?
No,
No, my dad gave me money to get my first marketing study.
I mean, Marci,
it was all funded by my dad.
Every day say, "Oh, I'd love to start my own business, but I don't have any money." Well,
yeah.
Right. Unless you want to sell Porsches and you got to buy stock, you don't need money.
No, and one of the things that I started off with, aside from doing the graphic design, was affiliate marketing. So I was paying attention to what was going on in the industry, and knew back then that technology was important, and that I wanted to work with larger companies. So and I really didn't have much of a portfolio. So I started paying attention to what were some of the marketing software that large companies were using. And I decided to become an affiliate for a lot of those companies, like Infusionsoft and HubSpot. Awesome. Yeah, so even before I had my own solid products, I was out there just like you, selling something to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it's some people are carpenters who can put them anywhere in the world and give them a hammer and a nail and they make money. I had my mouth and my brains, right? And so
Yeah.
I can sell anything because to me, it's the same process. It's me getting along well with somebody, finding out what they need and giving the solution, right? So
That's right.
you know, I sold ladies' clothes, you know,
Oh,
and
wow.
I became an expert on a breast milk product, right? I don't know, I'm not a breastfeeder, but I learned how to do it and away I went. And I won so many deals that I probably sat back when I won the deal and thought, well, how am I going to do this, right?
Can I tell you? Can I tell you about my first sales job? Because I told you about my first marketing job. My first sales job, the first official sales job was T-Mobile, but the first time I ever tried sales was a commercial mortgage company.
Oh,
And they said no experience required. They'll do all the training. Well, it turns out the company was a little bit crooked and they were looking to have people with no experience so that they didn't know that they were doing stuff wrong. I did this job for maybe about 6 months and made $50 calling and it was terrible. And I just got to the end where I was supposed to close a $280,000 apartment. No, 350,000. I was supposed to make 2,800 from it, which to me would have made up for all those months that I didn't make it. Well, I walk in to close the sale and the FBI is there.
oh my
There's
God.
been some wire fraud, some mortgage fraud, some crazy stuff. And I'm walking like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be making $2,800 today. You can't do this to me. I need this money. And somebody is waiting to be an apartment building owner. This lady has been trusting me. So they're like, listen, ma'am, have you done any business in this place? I'm like, I've been trying. I filled out an application and got $50 from her. So they're like, you're actually lucky because if you like, you can go on if you want to, go ahead and do it, but then you'll be under investigation like everybody else. So actually, you can walk out of here because you haven't been successful. And that's the first time in my life that being terrible saved my butt.
I love it. I love that. Oh God, because you weren't successful, otherwise you'd be sitting there doing time, you know?
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine that's your introduction? And can you believe I still sold some stuff after that? And that was my introduction to sales.
It's like a scene from The Wolf of Wall Street, you know?
Yes, it was crazy.
I love that. I love it. So, you know, you're talking to a lot of people every day because now you're popular, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're successful. You've got a great track record. You've got awesome stories. You even avoided getting arrested by the FBI, which I love, right? So you now, when you do those initial calls, all right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as, it's almost like the major problems that you see in the average business every day? If you could think of the two things that you're guaranteed these are going to come up, what would be those two things? Is it human? Is it technical? Is it whatever? What are the two things where you go, you know what? When I walk in a business and it's not working, these are the two things they're going to find. What are they?
The first one is companies working in silo instead of as a system. So not having cross-functional communication leads to a lot of buck passing and finger pointing on the business end, but on the receiving end for the customer, it leads to a whole lot of confusion and disappointment and loss of interest, which leads them to go to the competitor. So that's the number one thing that I see. Mm-hmm. I would say the number two thing that I see is people having an idea of a result, but not necessarily knowing the thing that they need to get the result. So for instance, people used to come to me and ask for a flyer. What they really wanted was people to come to their event, and they thought that a flyer was the best way to do it. But they didn't think about Eventbrite.
That's interesting.
They just wanted a paper flyer. Yeah. So you, because you see other people getting flyers, you think you need a flyer, but you can get flyers, but how is that going to make people come? What are you going to do with these flyers? You're going to put them on people's cars? Are you going to drop them off at buildings? Are you going to mail them to people? So it's creating the thing is only part of it. How do you implement and actually get that thing to work for you? And where does this fall in the supply chain? Very similar for websites. Okay, you got a website. Great. What are you going to do with it? How are people going to get to it? How are people going to find it? And once they get there, what are they going to do?
Do you think that's, and if we talk about butcher, baker, candlestick maker, little guy by himself, little gal by themselves, do you think that when they start the business, they think, okay, here's a checklist. I've got to have a website. But then it's like what you just said. They had got no idea. Well, why have you got a website? Well, because that's what everyone's got. Yeah, but what are you going to do with it? Is that the biggest thing? They just don't know.
For a lot of people getting started off, when I was working with smaller business owners, absolutely, I want a website. And then there was frustration. My website doesn't work. What do you mean? I'm not getting any sales from my website. Okay. Are you getting any traffic? How do I find that out?
Yeah.
Not even knowing that there's a space where you can check on your analytics and your website. But at the time, they weren't paying me to consult with them on analytics or anything like that. They just wanted a cute site. So that's what I gave them.
So basically, they're doing a lot because they see everyone else do it. It's like Facebook, all right? They start a Facebook page, but what I find is they tend to run it like their own rather than a business. Do you find that?
You said run it like their own, run the Facebook page like? What do you mean?
It's like, when you got your own Facebook page, what do? You put pictures up about the last week's barbecue.
Oh, yes.
And all that sort of stuff. They don't understand that a Facebook page for business is to build a community of customers, and they just don't know.
Yeah.
They don't realize how important it is.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And so what I noticed is that people will start off doing the things that they see other people do, which is noticeable. People try to reverse engineer business and things and success based on what they see, but they don't account for all the things behind the scenes that go into making that particular thing a success. So for instance, they might see that flyer, but they weren't there for any of the planning meetings. They don't know what the strategy is for that, and that flyer is just part of a greater marketing campaign.
It's the 80, what is it? The Pareto principle of 80-20, right? So if you've got a little Harry and Harriet business person, they think the website is the 80% of success and it's automatic, right? I'm going to put a website up and all of a sudden people are going to start calling me. But in actual fact, it's the 20 of the business. The 80 is when Marci comes in. Where Marci comes in and says, well, yeah, we can make you a pretty website and it'll be really good, but what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, that's important. And who do you want to attract?
Who do you want to attract?
Does your product apply to more than one customer, and how do we make it appealing to each one of those segments?
Yeah. Where's the click to call? Right? And it's funny, they'll sit there and you can buy, let's say it, you and I both know, you can buy a website on the internet $200, whatever, right? You can get it for free and build it yourself, or you can get the pimply kid down the road to build it for 6 bottles of, Monster energy drink, right?
Yeah.
And they think that is the 80%. But, it's not. It's not even, it's the 20%. And when you go to them and say, hey, we can build you this website for $200, but you might as well throw it down the drain. It's not going to get you anything. Are you finding things like that with, okay, they might have a good website, but then do they have a social media campaign? Do they have a social media plan? Do they have that? You get a lot of people now where you walk in and you say, well, the website's working. What are you going to do next? Do you get a lot of blank expressions?
So not in the way that I do business now. So I'm not in a position where people can just come and get me to build a website for them. People usually come to me to talk to me first about a website, but I never allow them to be sold on just a website because I know that just a website will not be what they need. We talk about strategy, we talk about customer segmentation, what their goals are for their financial and their growth and their positioning, even down to what are the things you're sick of doing all the time? What are the questions you're sick of people asking? What are the things that people seem to misunderstand and get confused? And then I show them how those things can actually be built into processes and technology to solve problems, and use your website as a tool to make business more efficient and to make selling easier. And
That's
even as a tool through analytics to help you understand your customers better with things like HubSpot, where you have the ability to see like everything that they're clicking on, how much time they're spending on each page, all the way down to the heat maps.
That was interesting. What do you ask them? What are the things that the customers say that drive you mad? Upset?
Yes, like what do customers do that get on your nerves? And I ask that because we think genuinely that customers get on our nerves, but actually it's us getting on our own nerves as a result of something that hasn't been communicated properly or some process that's broken. And when we feel like a customer has overstepped a boundary, it's because it's a boundary that we have not communicated or enforced.
That's interesting. A lot of people don't think about that. I always say that, and I don't sell websites, okay, because our business is mainly agencies. But I obviously advise people about websites. And I tell people, don't make the website an art gallery. Don't make it Wikipedia, and don't build it for yourself.
Yeah.
Build it for the people that are actually going to book and buy, which is the customer. And a lot of them, I reckon if I went out now and I asked some of our agency customers that question, a lot of them couldn't be able to answer it. They'll say it's the customer's problem. It's the customer's fault. Well, it's not.
That's not the attitude of a leader. The mindset of a leader is first looking within.
Yeah.
If I'm not happy with what is happening, the first thing is accountability.
Yeah.
What am I not doing to get the results that I need? Because the person that you have the most control over and the most power over is yourself. So what can I do differently to get different results? How can I communicate differently and better to be more clear about what I need or what I'm not willing to tolerate?
Yeah.
Any of those things. How can I, influence, build better relationships to get better results, whatever the case may be.
Okay.
And one of the things that you mentioned was really important when you were saying, like, who are you building it for? So what I usually tell people is there are two types of people that your marketing attracts, and you actually should be interested in attracting the latter. The first one is the people who know you, who are able to refer you, and they need to have things like your website so that when they refer you, they've got it. The person that you're really building the website for is the person who has a problem and they don't know who is going to solve it. Your website is responsible for helping them find you.
Yeah. What did Dr. Stephen Covey say? Seek first to understand before being understood. Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of, like, if I look at the way you market your business, it's almost like a psychology of customer attraction. And if you ask me, what do I think is the biggest problem with a lot of small businesses? What are those 2 points I asked you? You're given the right answers, that they don't put that time in the psychology of giving your customers what they want, because a lot of them don't understand it. They think it's all about the product, but it's not. It's a bunch of needs. It's a bunch of desires. In the end, it all comes down to humans love buying things off people they like. They love it when you understand them. They also love it when you ask them how they are.
Yes.
Right? And a lot of that goes by the wayside because, social media has created that in us. And like what you said, which is very good, they think, well, that's what other people do or other people provide. it must work. I'll do that first.
Mhm.
They base a lot of their business until someone like Marci Bryant comes along and says, no, that's not the way it is, baby. Right? This is the way
Yeah.
it is. Right. So I
Yeah.
really like, is that the psychology of your business, the core system? Like for TheCamel, it's all about customer attraction programs, not websites. So if somebody starts in your business to go out there and to be another Marci Bryant, is that what you're pitching to them and teach them as the core values of your business?
So my business has evolved over the last year and a half, where I really was focusing more on really small businesses and websites. But I'm sure, as you've heard in my recent Duda webinar, that I have grown, and now I'm working with more high ticket clients. So my focus is more on helping businesses align their marketing, sales, and service teams through my coaching and my proprietary frameworks in order to help them build better relationships among themselves so that they can have better relationships with the customers in an effort to move the market. Because when you've got people who understand the big picture and their role in it, they're able to move with a lot more confidence. They know what's actually going on, and you can expect better results from those people. And so I'm actually working on getting certified in HubSpot so that that can be one of the main things that I work on. And as you know, Duda integrates with HubSpot very well, so it'll still be the best of both worlds.
Fantastic. One of my great buddies is in charge of HubSpot in Australia, and I love it. You know, for where we're at, it's not something we'll do now, but it's something I recommend highly. I think it's great. So are you saying that you go in almost with an attitude of, okay, let's clean up your house first, and then we'll go out and start selling other houses?
Yeah, so I don't let people come to me with just one thing. I don't let people dictate to me what they want. They can tell me what they think the problem is, but I have to get in there with my hands under the hood, tinker around and see what's going on, because one of the biggest things that I've learned is about the importance of controlling your supply chain and marketing. I've had instances where the thing that I did was excellent, but because somebody else wasn't doing their part excellent, it impacted the success of my work. And so because I understand that, I say, this is all the things that I'm in control of. You're not going to have a WordPress site. You're not going to have a Wix site. If you work with me, you are going to have a Duda site.
I love that.
I've already vetted it, and this is a decision that I have made. And this is these are the services that you will have. This is what you need. And usually I give them like a few options, but there's like a minimal thing that all the minimum things is I'm not going to. So one of the things that I never do is I never pitch people based on what they tell me that their budget is. I ask, but I don't really end up caring that much, only because your budget is what you think it should be, just based on your level of knowledge. But what I'm going to pitch you is what you actually need. And I'm going to show you the difference between what you think it should be and what it actually is, and why the difference in the price. And I would say my rate of closing is about 98% when I do it that way.
Wow. You know, you actually mentioned something else as well, because like I got a great dislike of what I call agnostics, right? And I feel bad when someone walks in there and says, hey, I can give you a WordPress, Wix, Weebly, Dude, it doesn't matter, right? It's a website, right? But you just said something that appeals to me, because, you know, I'm so loyal to Duda. I love it. I've got orange running through my veins.
Yeah, me too.
And do you think that that's a really big strength to the customer? They get impressed with that when you say, look, I could offer this and this, but I'm a Duda person. Rather than, I think it's a big positive thing that you really believe in what you're selling. Because look at you when you talk about HubSpot, your eyes light up. Right? Right. But
So
HubSpot's got competitors, and you could offer.
So what I'm saying is, I actually learned this from the great Russell Brunson. So the first marketer that I ever studied, once I decided that I really wanted to be an online influencer, an online marketer. At first I was excited because I was like, okay, these are big dreams. And then I got really scared because I didn't know anybody who would ever accomplish this. So I started looking online for people and I found Russell Brunson. And one of the things that I read from Russell Brunson that stuck with me is the path to becoming a millionaire in marketing is to attach a software to your thought leadership.
Wow.
So you can have the skill, you can have the talent and the thought leadership, but you're only going to get the residual income from a subscription-based model. So if you're teaching something, you have a software to help people implement it, then you have your residual income. And so for years, I was thinking about like, what can I have? And then I thought about it and I was like, wait a minute, dude that has an agency, I can be a tech founder.
Yeah.
I can own my own web design software. And so I built my own brand, which is the Sync Digital Agency, and the Doodle website, which you can white label, I have renamed the Sync Web Editor.
Yeah. And it works.
It does.
You know, and it's a case of it, you know, that guy is so smart because I can remember my greatest goal was to open up the front door on the 1st of the month, and all the money I needed to operate came in. That's when you've got that subscription-based marketing. And a lot of people say, well, what's one of the keys? Brother, get either local SEO, get you know, some application, get like the Duda support services, get something that every time you sell a website, that's a one-off. You've got to have something that every month they're going to pay you a check, and that multiplies by 10, by 20, by 100. And the day you've got that, if you've got an OPEX of 30 grand and you've got 30 grand in subscription monthly, gee, you can go ballistic in what you do. So all praise Mr. Branton there. I think he did good. Okay, got a couple of interesting questions for you because we're coming to the end of our hour. One of the things I love to do is, you know, there's a sign up on the wall in that movie, Kingdom of, and it basically says, you know, what is a man unless he makes the world a better place, right? Now, in this day and age, we'd say, what is a person that doesn't make the world a better place? So all of a sudden, if you're at an event and there's 50 school children there, and they say, hey, there's Marci, she's really famous. Let's ask her to give some encouragement to these 50 kids. And there's no PowerPoint, there's no, you know, sort of like pre-speech or anything. They just say, can you go up there and give Marci Bryant's 5 key success to life principles? What do you tell those kids?
I'm going to tell them the story about my first time having to have endurance and not getting what I want the first time and having to work for it. And it was when I tried out for the cheer team the first time. So I tried out for the cheer team and I was really excited about it. And I used to see like at parties, my family would have parties, and I thought that this half split, the James Brown split, was like the split. And so at practice, when they asked, what is it like, can you do the split? I did my James Brown split and they're like, nah, like the real splits. And they showed me and I'm like, whoa, I can't do that. That's what this is. And so I did not make the cheer team that year. I did not make the cheer team the year after that, but my 3rd year, I got the 2nd highest score out of all the people that tried out. And that was my first time being passionate about something and also having to be patient and not letting rejection get the best of me, and not letting rejection, not letting that no remain a no. I took that as a not a right now and work on it, and you'll find your way to it. And so having that conversation, encouraging kids like, hey, even if you got a 75 on that spelling test, you know, the semester is 16 weeks, keep studying. Maybe you'll be at 85 by the end of the quarter.
Do you think if you were sitting there with 50 business people who were about to start businessmen, that your encouragement would be the same points?
No, my encouragement for them will be different. I will be talking to them about when I got my start at the Yellow Pages, and how people were in the midst of a recession and they were afraid to do it because they didn't know if their business would still be open by the time the book came out. So I would talk to them about how technology speeds things up and the importance of using technology to create authentic relationships, and that being a key to business success. Sweetheart, you have to wait.
What's your daughter's name?
My daughter's name is Nakia.
Hey, you want to say hi?
You want to say hi? She just wants juice and snacks.
Oh God, she's gorgeous. I got one of them on the way.
Yeah.
This
is the reason why I couldn't. This is the reason why I couldn't keep doing $300 websites, because they cost way more than $300.
I tell you, I know how you feel. You know what, Marci? I've enjoyed this so much, and the reason I've enjoyed it so much is you've been to the bottom, and you didn't give up. You know, you've been in the middle, you've been at the top. But what I love most, I love the way you go into a customer and you could make $500, $2,000 on just blogging a website. You could do that, but you actually sit back and think, I got to help these people out. And getting them to spend $2,000 or $500, what they think, is not the way you pitch it. You're pitching it a whole thing about what you believe they need to be successful. And I love that. And don't give up. And I got a lot myself out of today, and I want to thank you. It's been marvelous. And
it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
I really enjoyed it, because Marci, you're a legend, and you need that cape, and you should be in an Avenger movie.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been such a pleasure speaking with TheCamel, the one and only.
Wow. We're excited. You have a great day, Marci.
You too. Thanks so much, Shane. Bye.
Bye. It's nighttime actually for them. See you, Marci. Hey everybody, it's Shane from TheCamel.co, and I'm here with Jeffrey, and I just want to put a quick word out. Do you know that this video is one of hundreds of videos that are available on the Camel channel? And what are the videos? There's videos on how to sell, there's videos on how to market, there's videos on how to make something. We do a great curry. You name it, we've got videos about it, and we've also got a lot of videos about the special offers that TheCamel has. So it's not just this thing that you're seeing now, it's a lot of information, a lot of services. You want to know more? Just click on the subscribe button. That way you don't have to search, it automatically comes to your inbox. You do that, have a great day. From me, Jeffrey, talk to you soon. See ya.